O gwaliau yn y fantol.
I gyrhaeddodd hwn bore yma.
Ond o fyrdd e wedi sefydlu sianel dyledu yn y manifesto.
My name is Roger Williams. I am a screenwriter and producer from Wales. Lee Haven-Jones, the director, and I had been interested for a long time in why more filmmakers, Welsh filmmakers, didn't explore the country's history. And it seemed to us as though people were making work which was fictional, which was from their imagination, and we were interested in the challenge of looking at a piece of modern history and bringing it to life on the big screen. We were aware that the Welsh broadcaster S4C was about to celebrate 40 years since its creation, and we felt that now was a really good time to look at that story because it continues to reveal things about our culture, our nation, and where broadcasting might go next. Assoon translates literally as the noise or the sound, and I found it in a quotation from a Welsh academic, Jack L. Williams, who, even though he was a Welsh lecturer, very well respected, a Welsh speaker, he did not think that Wales should have a dedicated Welsh language television channel, and he campaigned against the idea. And one of the quotations that is attributed to him was made on a television discussion programme in which he said that if a Welsh language television channel were established, it would kill the sound of the Welsh language in homes across the nation. Because at that moment in time, or any Welsh programming was actually broadcast amongst English language programmes. So you'd be watching a channel which was 95% English, and then you would see a Welsh language programme. And he felt that that was a better way to expose the language to a much wider section of the population than to put the programmes in what he characterised as a ghetto. So Assoon refers to his quotation and the points that he was trying to make in his arguments about why a Welsh channel was a bad idea. But of course, Assoon, the noise, also refers to the protesters who, in a very literal sense, made a lot of noise when they were demanding the channel they felt they deserved. The process started with research. I was a child when this story was happening in the late 70s. So I had an awareness of the story, but I didn't really understand the story. So I felt that I wanted to go away and do my homework in a sense. So there was a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of interviews that I undertook with people who were a part of the story and remember the story, and also people who were friends and families of some of the main players in the story who sadly are no longer with us. So after a long period of research, I reached a point where I felt that I just had to take ownership of the story, because I suddenly realised actually that there is a history, but people have different perspectives on that history. And it was up to me to try and define the story that I wanted to tell. The film is presented as fiction because it is my version of the story, even though it's based on historical fact and it's based on a lot of research. There is also an element of dramatic license that I take with the story. There are 3 fictional characters in the film, and I am imagining what the conversations were and what actually took place behind closed doors. And I think in order to get over the problem of there being a number of different histories and versions of history that are remembered by people, I wanted to own that story, and the way for me to do it as a filmmaker, I felt, was to present it as fiction. And the quotation at the start of the film essentially says that the dramatist will get closer to the truth of history than any historian actually ever will. And we like that, and we like that quotation. We're also aware that we are making a work of drama about the creation of a television channel, and therefore it felt that we should make a nod to that in the way that we start the film, but the way that we end the film as well, where we strip away the artifice, we stop pretending that this is real. We no longer suspend our disbelief, and we come to the modern age, to reality, and we challenge the audience directly to consider what the future of broadcasting might be, and whether they themselves might have to fight to make sure that there is content of quality available in the Welsh language one day. Neither the director nor I wanted to make a boring film. We wanted it to be a film full of life, full of energy, full of colour, and there's a version of this story which isn't any of those things, and we were determined to make something that would therefore surprise the audience when they went to see a film on a subject matter which they might, in their preconceptions, think was going to be quite dry and worthy. So we were constantly looking before we started shooting at how the film would look, how the film would feel. Bedded into the script, scripted there is archive, that we will use archive at certain points, that we will use certain songs, we will use certain graphics that will fill the screen. But one of the defining features of the film, I think, is the way that Wales is represented in a very tight, small aspect ratio, but in a vibrant colour. And London is represented in widescreen and in black and white. And that was to define the two places, to have the two places in opposition to one another, and also to give the film a grammar to enable us more easily to explain the story to the audience, because we're more than aware that there is a lot of information that we are asking people to understand in order to give the film its social and cultural context. So that decision really was about making the film as cinematic an experience as we could for the viewer, but also helps us to make it a distinct and unique piece of work. Minority languages all across the world are under threat, and it's easy for people in Wales, I think, to forget that the status of the language as it is today has been hard fought for. We have Welsh medium schools, we have Welsh language broadcasting, we have a number of rights that we are able to enjoy as Welsh speakers. It's very visible these days, the Welsh language, and there is a sense that the Welsh language is safe. However, if you look at the results of the census, it shows that actually the language is stable. It's in a stable place, although there has, in the last number of decades, been a steady decline as well. And therefore, I don't think anyone should be complacent about safeguarding a language. The Welsh language, like all minority languages, faces threats from globalisation, its proximity to England, which has, of course, always been a tension. And it's remarkable, really, that the language has survived when it shares a border with England. And of course, we don't know what threats the future holds either. So I think if the language is going to survive and to continue, it's going to need to have its champions who, like Wynfor Evans in the film and the other protesters, are prepared to step up when necessary and make sure that the ground that has been won over the years isn't lost. Lee Haven-Jones and I, we're both first language Welsh speakers, so it comes very natural to us, even though we work in English as well. It's very natural for us to make work in the Welsh language, and we reached a point a few years ago where we decided we always wanted to evolve the sorts of work that we make. So our last film was a horror film. This film is a political period drama. Our hope is that our next Welsh language feature will be a science fiction story, which again politically will have messages about second home ownership and the way in which small rural communities are under threat because local people can't buy houses and have homes in the communities they were born into. We're making a drama series, hopefully, about, again, the threat to minority cultures, but in our drama series, the minority culture will be vampire culture, Welsh-speaking vampires. So we are constantly looking for ways in which we can surprise the audience, but also become more sophisticated in the types of stories that we're telling, and that we aren't simply telling the same kinds of stories in the same kinds of way.